Discovery Season 5, Episode 7. Around and around and around we go, facing off across a big hole. Hey, it is Dr. Trek, Larry Nemecek, coming at you here from the heart of Trekland and letting the dust settle just a bit on all the recent Trek episodes and headlines. Hey, so instead of a quick take or a hot take, you get a second opinion from Dr. Trek. Hey, I have been writing, authoring, editing, interviewing, hosting, archiving, witnessing, dot connecting, punditing, and fanning Star Trek for a while now. So I just want to say, yes, I know Erigah, this week's episode, refers to a Breen blood bounty. But for me, this one came down to two words: bottle show. Yep, a two-set bottle show. A bottle show meaning a money saver or just a simple show with very few guest stars, if any, very few new sets, if any, visual effects, just making a show out of what you've got. And sometimes they've been money savers in the past, but hugely dramatic at the same time. A two-set bottle show, in fact, where most of the action, to me, was taking place either in sick bay, of all places, or yes, in the big Fed HQ big wheel. But that means negotiation and high stakes. And if I'm sounding a little choreographic, that's the way it felt to me. I just say that because at one point, several points actually, it did feel like a big dance. Or else social distancing around the big round desk. And yes, COVID-19 was still very much a thing when this was being filmed in 2022. Check the end credits. No, seriously, that big hole at the new 32nd Century Federation HQ, the gleaming green tinted, come on. It's good for not just galactic star charts or galactic crisis conferences. It's great for dancing around with your adversaries. Come on, didn't anybody else feel like we'd fallen into some kind of a Victorian waltz scene here, or maybe even a Busby Berkeley musical? Okay, that's a little over the top, but really, it did fit the vibe of negotiation, except instead of dance partners, we had dance sides. They just love walking around that circle even before the Breen get there. Around and around and around. It must be some kind of 32nd century brainstorming strategy. But hey, book should never show up for a vote there. Hey, I'm kidding. But kudos, seriously, to our solo writer this week, Raven Metzner, who, if you read his socials, proclaims to be a lifelong Star Trek fan who is so tickled and thrilled to be on the series this season as a consulting producer. This is his first script for Disco, but he's had a long career. He was showrunner for Marvel's Iron Fist, and he was an EP executive producer at Sleepy Hollow for seasons and seasons. And in the director's chair, we've got John Dudkowski. Now, he's been a lifelong editor. In fact, across his career, includes 30 episodes on Fringe. This is his 17th for Discovery in the rotating scheme of editors. In fact, he was there. He edited the pilot. He edited Vulcan Hello back in season 1. But now he's had the chance to direct. He directed Unification 3 in season 3, right? The Romulan Vulcan Navarre episode after the jump, post-burn. This is his second time to direct. Ooh, little things, big things. Little thing. Okay, gang, you're gonna zap beam again from the ready room to the bridge? What, just to make a big entrance? Oh, but when Vance is waiting, you walk to the ready room. Big thing. This Labyrinth of the Mind, this Betazoid treatise by, Dr. Marina Derricks, that was in 2371, which was a not unbusy year. Just to say, that was the year of the Nexus attack in Star Trek Generations. It was the third season of DS9, and it was the year that Voyager got Delta queued. It's so curious how the idea of a limited few thousand published was still a thing then. Boy, these book hobby nerds must live forever. Put a pin in that. Little thing, Teller Prime gets a mention Rillick is at a diplomatic conference there. There needs to be so many more mentions of Teller Prime, but I'm not going to argue about it. Big thing, and I mean a big thing. Yeah, this DS9 deep dive love affair is continuing, but of course, that's the most contact we'd ever had with anything Breen. So, of course, the references, such as they are coming from there, right? I mean, so there's been no contact with the Breen since at least the burn. That's 3089. But hey, caught flat footed? They're talking about the Dominion War raid by the Breen on Earth, San Francisco, the Golden Gate Bridge back during the Dominion War. That must have really stung to be 700 years later. And that's what the people naturally of the time still go to. I mean, would Pearl Harbor and 9/11, would that sting really last 700 years? This must have been something. But then again, there's been a complete vacuum of other events, other attacks, but also anything with the brain since then. It's food for thought. Of course, being a Dominion War event, Burnham never lived through it. She skipped over it. At least it's old history to Rayner and to Vance and to Rena even. It's also maybe why that old Romulan saying, never turn your back on a brain, also from DS9, might be why that has such a long history, even post unification on Navarre. But hey, the Dominion War even gets an actual name check. We've got an old breed refrigeration unit. It's been in the archives for 700 years. That must have been some artifact. But okay, here though, we do get that the refrigeration unit uses a blend of sub-zero gases that promotes a strong immune response in Breen. Okay, there's your cold angle. Cold was never not part of the Breen equation when we get into the soft skin, hard shell duality of their external exoskeleton or exolayer. But now what's new is talking about the recent death of the emperor. Yes, it's the Breen Imperium. Back in the day, 24th century, it was the Breen Confederacy. I wonder what was the shift there. So what do we have now? 6 Primarchs vying for power? Oh, take that, Klingons. Yeah, it's a regular game of flights. And here we go. Federation, even in this time period, doesn't know anything, if all, about Breen physiology. They didn't know Breen meds. They didn't know the Breen appearances. But boy, they know what a Breen digital hollow datacom file looks like. Hey, I do love, though, those bubbly organs in the imagery of the med scans that we see from Locke in sickbay. Even if they don't know what they do, they've got them colored cool. Most of all, big thing, literally, that big honkin' Breen ship. Now that is a dreadnought. Hey, forget the dreadnoughts of your past. All the other cultures, anything from on-screen canon, licensed works, books, fanon canon, and yes, even Franz Joseph's little Federation dreadnoughts. Now that is a big deal ship. I think it's even bigger than the Voth city ships. Little thing, did you notice? It's cool how Tilly could decreate her phaser back to nothing. But ooh, the Breen have magic programmable matter weapon creators too. Okay, this is a big thing, and it tickled me. It's been ages since I got to go screen cap diving. I mean, really, but I just had to when the 4 ships show up to help save the day, right, at Federation HQ, and you get the graphic there, Lieutenant Timo's. They're all 4 are real distinctive 32nd century designs. I go deep diving. I mean, I'm catching up on all this, but still, you can go see, and we came up with, and kind of like letter read her graphic. It's the Excalibur, the Credence, the Lamar, and yes, the Lockerer. By the way, did you notice the little jiggle at the end? It's all in space. But when that big honkin' Breen dreadnought took off, all the little Starfleet ships just kind little mini subspace wave. Little thing. I just thought it was weird the way Michael kept calling the Terran Enterprise from last episode. When she referred to it here, she kept calling it the ISS. The ISS this, the ISS, just the ISS. I mean, wow, they'd never do that over on Strange New. Big thing. Now, Stamets mentions that the Mitchell is out there, apparently meaning that it's a big, beefy battleship and it's fast reacting and it's there to help protect them. And of course, we all know that it was an homage, right, to the late, great Ken Mitchell. Little thing, but you got to have your closed captions on for this one. Because at one point, Non refers to something being fierce as a Sata crew. And I'm like, what? Thank you, captions. I'm assuming what? That's a Barzan critter? Because the same episode is very critical. Looks like we all also know about Kohler beetles from Kelleran, and we now know about ockworms on Breen. But Tau Ceti is a star. It's the Bayer classified name for the star otherwise known with the proper name of Kephiria, which between Tau Ceti and Kephiria, yes, we know there's several Star Trek Class M planets. Tau Ceti Prime is the ice planet where Janeway's dad drowned under the polar ice cap. Look it up. So I'm not sure what Tau Ceti, the star and its system, has to do with a lethal viper with a slow-acting venom, which is what Primarch Lahar supposedly used to kill her innocent victims. Unless a Ceti viper is a thing. Just don't confuse it with a Ceti eel, which of course we all know is from the Ceti Alpha system. That was Ceti Alpha 5. But of course, I have questions too. For one thing, what this season is with all the smoke in Engineering's Spore Lab? What is there? Is that where the subway runs underneath? While we're down there, out in the deck corridor, the targeting matrix is in the deck flooring, where Commander Reno is down on her hands and knees working. And scion is a word. It means a descendant. It means a notable member of a group. But here, is it a capital S scion? Is it the designated position in the royal hierarchy line of succession? Like the closest bloodline regent or Prince of Wales or heir apparent or rightful heir? Because knowing that would help us gauge the stakes on exactly what role Locke plays here, whether he's wanted to be wanted or not. Oh, and when did Culber learn hand-to-hand combat like that? Existential crisis, my ass. But speaking of our cast and our characters, it was cool, to see Culber wearing a cold weather jacket to kind of denote the idea that, yeah, they're in a Breen refrigeration unit in and out. But seriously, I guess life and death, his skill set leaves not much time for this season's existential crisis. But stay tuned, I'm sure. And in the finest Trek tradition, well, hey, did you see the beam in into sickbay, the initial scene? Culber standing there with the biobed ready, and yes, one of his, well, I could say nurse, that might be sexist, one of his medical colleagues. She's a face that we've seen forever. And yes, in the finest Trek tradition, they use familiar extras all the time to give it that authenticity, even if they never get a line as a background performer, right? Well, say hello. We'll call her out this time, finally. Shelley Owens, because she's had 14 appearances, at least on the show in that role. And she's got her own Memory Alpha page. Look her up. And Dr. Pollard misses out on all the fun stuff. What'd she do? Jump in with Detmer and Oo and take the Terran Enterprise back to HQ? Now, if you're really taking folks and faces notes, you may have noticed this. I mentioned Lieutenant Timo back there at the Federation HQ scanner board. She was played by Doran Lee, actually with us at the end of season 3, the jump season in Is There a Tide? But hey, still no Doug Jones. But yeah, in this time intervening, he's come out and said, gang, I was filming Hocus Pocus 2 at this period of time, late summer, early fall in 2022. But at least Saru gets a name check here. He's on some mission that's out near Breen space, right? Over to the northwest, air quotes, above Ferengi and the Badlands. Put a pin in that. But we did get Tig Notaro and Reno as a book collector. She was a shady smuggler and a VIP pilot and a deep mercury welder. What's a shallow mercury welder? And a bartender. And she's guested at Reds, which is that retcon name for the lounge on Discovery, and 7 of Limes. It's a funny line, but I guess that means she's been reading up on her history of Federation heroes because it happened after they jumped from the 23rd century, right? And archival books? Well, now I have to wonder if Jet Reno and books, my boy, Samuel T. Cogley, attorney at law, ever shared a couple of tall ones and talked about their love of books, right? I mean, Dead Tree Media, it was amazing that it was still alive in the 2200s, much less coming up as a clue topic now. Of course, it was good to see Commander Non again, Rachel Ancheri. She has a Romulan in her Federation security team. Unfortunately, we didn't get to see it. So is Tarina like the vice president of the Federation? Is there a formal title? Rillick is away at this conference, right? Maybe there's not a formal, maybe she's informal, maybe it's just the council. We still don't know exactly what's going on there. But hey, once again, she can crack one about tribbles and what passes for the twinkle in the eye of a Vulcan. That must be what Saru goes for. Now, it's great to see Tilly and Stamets, but this scene together, I don't exactly think it was the best written scene they've ever shared. I don't get the logic flow. Felt a little clunky. What, she's suddenly worried about being with her cadets in the event of a Breen attack? Does it really matter? They're all right there together. Is it all about some nanosecond of comfort before they're all obliterated? And most of all, doesn't he outrank her? Just order her to stay. But hey, I'm a little disappointed here in Book. His protest at the end might have been heartfelt about giving Maul over to the Breen, but feels short-sighted. Does he not appreciate the fact after all of this that Maul does likely have a plan? And that the Federation is counting on her having a plan? They always have a plan. Or at the very least, that we're going to find out that the Breen have some kind of classic Does MacGuffin, like a nictating membrane in the eyelid, as some famous Falcons have been known to be saved by. But boy, I did not see Rayner returning to his trademark outspoken crustiness vis-a-vis the knowledge that his now revealed family were all murdered, wiped out by a Breen. In fact, the Breen that can be brought in as collateral leverage, truthfully or not, in the negotiation at hand. Now, I think it's really amazing how this battle between old Rayner and the evolving Rayner, it's really been remarkably nuanced, especially for Disco. Now, by the way, his Thoron emitters and his Duranium Shadows trick, I guess it's a good one. It's lasted hundreds of years, but we first heard O'Brien using that. It's exactly what he did to fake out the Cardassians in the pilot of DS9, another DS9 reference, and then do it for real during the Klingon attack in The Way of the Warrior. And you know what? This may be the best example of Burnham just being a cog in a wheel and not being the hero that saves everybody, everything, all on her shoulders. Now, she does have the key bit of pulling Rayner's testimony out to use it as leverage. But this episode is not all about her saving the day. She's part of a team effort here. And I will say, though, it did strike me odd hearing Maul keep asking and referring to her as Captain Burnham. I know this makes no sense. We've heard her called Captain and Michael Burnham. But for some reason, hearing her referred to as Captain Burnham, it felt new. Surely someone has called her Captain Burnham formally before, haven't they? So overall, I have to tell you, when Book and Stamets are working out the dynamics of the clues of the clue and his big hollow board. By the way, has that hollow service board been sitting there in the engineering spore lab this whole time? And it just now gets used? Anyway, when they come up with the idea that it's sounding like plasma storms, and I was thinking, wow, it's just like the Badlands. Oh, wait, it is the Badlands. Another one for DS9. But big picture, moving on. We now know, figured it out. This eternal gallery and archive, what, the EGA? Okay, so it changes sites every 50 years for protection. Has slow moving enemies, apparently. So that's 19 locations over 900 years. It's like a bookmobile from Memory Alpha. I mean, the real Memory Alpha, not the website. And all the way through this, maybe it was the tone of negotiation. This felt like an old school score. This felt like a third season original series score, heavy on the strings, finding the tension, going into cellos. What's most amazing is, can you believe I'm talking about music for 2 episodes in a row? It just felt like a sci-fi film noir tension fest. Subtle, nuanced, old school, no bombast. But I gotta say, I feel like there are some scenes, the Stamets book, the Stamets Tilly scene, where the dialogue is just a little on the clunky side for me. Also, in the end, when Maul is pleading for her life in her case and she offers to give up the progenitor tech, she says, in so many words, she says, the Federation's hiding something from you. And everybody just stands around. Nobody from our side makes a move to go, no, 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 no. Nobody blinks. Everybody just stares at each other and they stare at her. What is up with that? Is it a master secret, simple, complex, uber duber plan that's already put in place? Most of all, yes, I agree with Maul. This is not where their story ends. I mean, yes, in the moment, 20% of me was thinking, wow, they're really going to kill him off. They're really going to split this pair up and go on with the end of the season with her alone. And 80% of me said, they're bringing in all these threads about how to bring people back with the device, with the progenitor's tech. It's going to happen. The question is just how. How, right? We've got that already. And like I said, this whole progenitor's weapon is starting to sound an awful lot like, I don't know, a certain effect from a few hundred years back. I mean, really, did the progenitors also take a few too many shortcuts with that proto matter? We'll see. I guess when they stick Locke's body in a photon torpedo tube and shoot it into orbit, well, my friends, we'll be home. Oh, and one more thing. I guess the power of phraseology and colorful metaphors is a strong one. Really? In a world of programmable magic matter, a phrase like needle in a haystack is ageless, as is apparently the littles. Well, I guess it is to the Archaic Ancient Book Club. Okay, and with that, I guess it's a good place to sign off on this second opinion. Well, that's what I thought on this episode 507, right? What did you think? Come on, comment below. Please take me up on my offer here. And while you're at it, would you like and subscribe too? Share all this. Hey, I dare you to subscribe for some Star Trek sanity. Well, most of all, if you appreciate Dr. Trek and the Trekland point of view, I invite you to go over and look at all of my experiences like Portal 47, our Backstage Minicon all year long subscription package. Or yeah, take your own customized away team, your own away mission around the location sites around Los Angeles with the Trekland Treks. You plan it, I lead it. Or any of our podcasts like Trekland Tuesdays Live on Tuesday, the live stream, and of course the Trek Files on Roddenberry, Cadet Alice, and Dr. Trek Watch Prodigy, and of course, Second Opinion. Hey, it's all over at my site, LarryNemecek.com. Take a look, would you please? Get on the newsletter. Fun stuff happens there too, as well as our Cameo store and our TeePublic shop. Well, we'll see you next week. Trek well, everybody.